Earlier this year, a short film, a so-called documentary called After Eight, won an award, the Wicker's Best Short Film Award, presented by Jane Ray. The film tells the story of Satpal Ram and reflects on the ongoing fight for racial equality. Does it really? I haven't watched this film. I've watched the trailer and I've read 2 reviews of it. More than 2 reviews actually, but I'm going to discuss here Brown History on Substack and The Story of Satpal Ram, A Lifelong Struggle for Justice by Rose Mackenzie Lewis of the Revolutionary Communist Fight Racism, Fight Imperialism. I'll put links below. Rose Mackenzie Lewis says, Satpal, who was released in 2012 and has since been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, watched the film with quiet dignity. The documentary paints a vivid picture of the miscarriage of justice he endured, beginning with the night of November 16, 1986, when 20-year-old Satpal and 2 friends went out for a meal at the Sky Blue Indian restaurant in Birmingham. A table of 6 white men began hurling racist abuse at the staff and complaining about the Asian music being played. Satpal responded by asking for the music to be turned up. One of the men, Clark Pierce, attacked Satpal with a broken glass. Satpal defended himself with a short-bladed penknife during the struggle, resulting in Pierce sustaining wounds which, when he refused medical treatment, proved fatal. That is a tissue of lies, an absolute tissue of lies. To begin with, there were not 6 white men. There were 6 white people. There was Clark Pierce, his fiancée, Clark's elder sister, Nadine O'Neill. Clark was the baby of the family. She was there with her husband, and there was another couple on this table. How do I know all this? Well, 24 years ago, I set up a website about this case, this so-called miscarriage of justice. I interviewed many people, including Ram's arch liar, Leslie Naylor. And over the years, I've added quite a lot of material, including material released by the Public Record Office, the National Archives it is now, witness statements. I'll put a link to the website below and the material I've uploaded to the Internet Archive. There were not 6 white men. What happened was the music was a bit loud and Clark's table asked for it to be turned down. And Ram shouted, "What's the matter? Don't you like packy music?" Here is a press report after his conviction. Clark Pierce attacked Satpal with a broken glass. Yeah, sure. Ram did sustain a cut to his face that required 3 stitches. The claim that he defended himself with a short-bladed penknife is ludicrous. He used a flick knife, an illegal weapon, because, as Nadine O'Neill said, he opened it with one hand. A penknife is a folding knife, and the idea that Ram was being attacked by 6 white men or 1 white man, a man who was like 5 inches taller and maybe 4 stone heavier than him, and somehow managed to unfold this knife, and it's ludicrous. Clark was stabbed in the back, which, when he refused medical treatment, proved fatal. No. The Free Satpal campaign issued a leaflet which said that Clark Pierce refused to be treated by a woman doctor, pulled out his drips and went home, where he later died. I asked Leslie Naylor about that 2 decades ago, and she couldn't explain how it got into this leaflet. No, of course not. Clark Pierce never refused medical treatment. He wasn't in a position to. He died on the operating table. The death was 4:23 a.m. I interviewed the doctor who treated him, Jean McGiven. She emigrated to Australia shortly before the trial. After stabbing Clark, Ram went into the toilet, cleaned himself up, came out, and as he walked past Clark, he said he hoped he'd killed him, I hoped he'd die, words to that effect. You'll find that in the appeal judgment. In the first appeal, failed appeal, which was dismissed at the leave stage. Ram went to another hospital, a different hospital from Clark, where Clark was taken, where he gave a false name, the name of a real person, but a false name. But he was so drunk and abusive that he couldn't be treated initially. Then he tried to obtain a passport to flee the country. And Ram was born in Birmingham. And unable to do that, he gave himself up to a lawyer named John Morgan, who I spoke to him as well. He's not a very good lawyer. Not as if the best lawyer in the world would have done Ram any good. This article goes on. What followed was a trial marred by systemic failures and prejudice. Satpal's barrister advised him against pleading self-defence or giving evidence, having misinterpreted a pathology report. No. I obtained the pathologist report, and you'll find that on the website. Satpal's barrister, top flight QC, Douglas Draycott, he said that self-defence was untenable. The only possible defence was provocation, and he said that that was part of the prosecution case. But as the first appeal said, that was a provocation so great as to provoke a reasonably sober man to do what the defendant did. In the first instance, there was evidence that the defendant was not sober. It says here that Ram spent 24 years in prison. Well, he was actually paroled in 2002. Do the math, like 1986 to November 1986, December 1986, when he was arrested, to June 2002. That isn't 24 years, is it? He was recalled to prison. He was paroled. There was a big press conference, Barrington fight on and clear his name. He was paroled, say, with much fanfare, and then in no real time at all, he was recalled to prison for, excuse the creaky table, it's a perennial problem. He was recalled to prison following allegations of assault and criminal damage, and he spent more years in prison. As for his suffering in prison, well, that was his own fault. Prison staff don't mess around with, certainly not men convicted of murder. He made a nuisance of himself. He called himself a political prisoner. Can you believe that? So it's a tissue of lies. I actually emailed Rose Mackenzie Lewis about this review, and I was ignored, as I expected to be. This is a website, an organisation that claims to be fighting on behalf of the workers. Clark Pierce was an ordinary working man, a white working class man. He was a postal worker. You don't get much more working class than that, do you? And yet he's referred to as a racist. Satpal stabbed a racist all over the place. No. Satpal Ram was a little shit, and he's still a little shit. And the people who made this documentary, they're shits as well, because they must know the truth. You only have to do some basic research. Even though all over the internet you'll read about how Ram's a victim of miscarriage of justice, if you found my website, Satpal Ram is guilty at 20m.com. If you read the law report in the Times, any basic research, it's a no-brainer. This guy was guilty of murder and deserved to spend every day of those 24 years in prison. But this is a hate campaign that's pursued Clark Pierce beyond the grave. And for people who claim to be on the side of the workers, this is disgusting.